Hey guys, how's it going? So today I'm going to be doing a review of the Shoot Dome Port. This is for the Yi 4K or the Yi 4K Plus action cameras. They do have another model if you happen to have like the Yi Lite or one of the other editions of the Yi action camera. But today I'm specifically going to be focusing on this one, QB-Roll. I guess the first thing I should get into is what a dome port is, what it does, and what are the use cases where you may want to use one. So a dome port, as opposed to just the standard waterproof case with the flat front, it is curved so that way it actually counteracts the distortion of the water, and you actually end up getting a more normal field of view that you would if you were above water. I don't know if you've ever noticed, if you go underwater with a waterproof case, it suddenly looks like everything gets closer up, magnified, zoomed in. That's distortion caused by the water. So the dome port counteracts that. And then another cool thing it does, because it counteracts the distortion and it keeps the water a little bit further from the front of the lens, you can actually get those really cool half under, half over shot. I'll go ahead and overlay something right now to show you what I'm talking about. So you can get underwater and over water at the same time and get a kind of really neat effect. Although that's not the only point of it, because if you go completely submerged, you don't have the distortion and you keep that fully wide field of view without ending up really narrow like your tunnel vision. So just to give you an idea of what it does to the distortion, I'm going to go ahead and throw some footage, switch back and forth between with dome port and without. In both of these examples, I'm holding it out at full arm's length, so it should be relatively the same distance from my face. And as you can see, the one without the dome port appears to be much closer to my face. It's zoomed in, magnified. Whereas the one with the dome port, you're getting a much wider field of view and you're able to actually get more image captured per se. Alright, so for starting off, it did not come in this case. This is a case I bought for it after the fact because it came in just a cardboard box and had a cheap little microfiber sleeve, and it really didn't inspire a whole lot of confidence. So I'll go ahead and pop this open and show you what I got. So it comes with, basically, you get the actual dome itself. The dome itself, along with an actual smaller housing that fits the Yi 4K or the 4K Plus. And it just has the one button, of course, because that's the only button this thing has other than a touchscreen. And so all this does, let me slide it over, is it slots into the hole there, and then you mount this plate over it to lock it in place. And it's got a little rubberized seal around the square around this lens here, so that way it becomes fully watertight. A couple other things it came with was, this is the microfiber sleeve I was talking about that it doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence. I'll get into that later. And then of course it came with a small pack of the little moisture absorbers for going inside the actual case. And then it came with this little handle right here, along with the nut to screw it on, or the bolt, sorry. It did not come with this. This is something I added after the fact. It's just a small GoPro wrench. I find it really helps to have this on hand. So the things I do like about it, it comes with basically two cases in one. You've got the small normal case for your action camera, and then you can mount it in here to get your full-size dome port. And so the actual action camera case, this is kind of somewhat rubberized. It's like a softer plastic. And then there's a bit of a rubber seal on the inside of here. So it completes a nice watertight seal, and that way no water gets into the dome. And of course this is already waterproof, so you don't have to worry about that. It has nice seals all the way around the edge. The latch feels really good. And you know, it takes a good bit of force to pry it off, which is always indicative of a good seal. The button feels really good, has a nice amount of spring to it, but not too much. And the lens works pretty good. I mean, it's all around, I mean, just for the case itself, that's a pretty good deal. This, by the way, forgot to mention, it's about 40 bucks on Amazon. I will include the link to it. So here, let me go ahead and pull this off just to show you. So here's my E4K. Does not come with that, sadly. And then there's plenty of space in here. There's some nice little spots where you can actually put your moisture absorbers to keep the lens from fogging up if you're in a really humid environment. I do like how it has these lens pedals here. They actually come out a lot more than the bulb itself, so when you're on a flat surface you can set it face down and the pedals will hold it up without you actually having to worry about the lens touching. I like the thumb screws. They're good, but I kind of wish they had a little slit in them maybe, so that way you could use a flat head or a coin to tighten them or loosen them, because sometimes after you've had it on for a while and it's nice and tight, especially after it's wet, getting it off is not that fun because you don't got a lot of space in here to work with, whether it being right next to this metal piece. The other thing I like about it is, again, it just counteracts the distortion. I can't say that I've fully tested it, but to the naked eye, the casual observer, it almost completely eliminates the distortion. The lens itself is pretty solid, pretty nice. It's a plastic of some kind. The issue I have run into with it, is because this right here is just an open hole when you don't have the actual case in there. If you're at the beach, which is ideally a great place to be using it, and you're using your camera in just this case by itself, and then this thing, again, mind you, this is all it comes with to store it in. You put it in there, and I mean, no matter how careful you are, I was as careful as I could be, and I ended up with sand on the inside of the dome here. And so I had to use little rocket blowers, you know, for sensor cleaners and that kind of stuff, lens cleaners, to try and get it out. I couldn't get it all out, so I actually ended up having to take off all these Torx screws around the outside, take off the lens, and get that sand out, and then clean it out while I was in there. And actually that's a good segue into this thing does come apart. It's basically a sandwich. So you've got the plastic lens in the middle, and then the front and back of this clamshell just basically screw around that, and there's a giant O-ring on the inside. So if you ever need to clean it, you can take it apart if you have the right size Torx, and then you can take the lens out, clean that by itself, maybe even clean the O-ring. I know it's good every now and then to take some Vaseline to it and just give it a nice light coating. So I think my only major complaint with this thing, I really love it, but my only major complaint with it is that the lens does tend to scratch up a little bit easily. Again, it's some kind of plastic, so it's not super tough, and all it came with was this to put it in, which is why I ended up going down to Harbor Freight and getting this case here. I think it was like 30 bucks at Harbor Freight. I'll try and provide a link to it, but it's Harbor Freight, so I don't know if I can find it on their website. And then the handle actually feels really good in the hand. It's like perfect size for my hands anyway. Has a nice textured grip to it. And it does make the action cam float if you have it just like this. If you just have the action cam in here with no handle at all, it will sink. So this thing has enough buoyancy to hold up the camera, and it's got that nice green tips. So that way it makes it stand out if you accidentally drop it, say when you get hit by a wave or whatever. back to the case, I really wish they had taken a play from other, lens manufacturers that have the super wide angle lens with the bulbous front and made some kind of rubber or plastic sleeve that just kind of pie plates over that. That way you could actually put that on, cinch it on or whatever, and I'd feel a little bit more confident with that. This bag does not inspire a whole lot of confidence, and that's why I ended up having to go down and get that hard case. And even then, it's already kind of too late because I don't know if you can see this, but it's pretty well scratched up. I may take it out, take it apart, and try and polish it up some, see if that can help. I would assume it could. But all in all, I really do love this case. I mean, even just for the small waterproof case by itself, that's a pretty good deal. And I love the way they work together, so that way you don't have to take your camera out of this one and into that one. So it's kind of a trade-off. I almost wish they had some kind of piece of glass over the part where the actual camera fits in here. Then that way you wouldn't be as likely to get sand or anything in there. But I mean, I do love the bifurcated design, the hybrid design, because this case by itself, I mean, I don't recall, but I think most of these little cases for the camera go for 20 to 40 bucks anyway. So having one that fits inside that dome port, it just makes it a lot nicer because you don't have to take it out. You just plop that right into your dome port and you go to town. I would definitely advise, if you do get this thing, to get yourself a good GoPro wrench. This is the one I have. And what I have to do, because if you actually have this in the dome port, it's pretty tough to get this on and screw it because you're going to be right there next to the dome port with everything in your way. You won't be able to use the wrench. You're going to have a really tough time using your fingers. So while I have it out, I get it on there, and then I use the wrench to torque it down nice and tight. And then that way, once I get the port on, it's already torqued into whatever position I want it in, and that's the position I generally leave it in. So yeah, I'll probably go ahead and throw some B-roll up right now just to show you some more footage with it. Again, I really love this thing. I mean, any of my complaints that I have with it are relatively minor. Even with the scratches that I have on the front, it still performs really well. Doesn't seem to show up a lot in the image, especially when I'm underwater. The front of the lens does not seem to really bead water as badly as I was afraid it would. It still does, but it's definitely manageable and still extremely usable. So in all, if you're looking for a good dome port and you have the E4K or the 4K Plus, I would highly recommend this one. For that matter, I don't think there are any other ones that fit this specific action camera. They do have another version that fits the light and the original Yi, I think it is. And it's actually a smaller dome port. It's a 4-inch dome as opposed to this is a 6-inch dome, which I actually ended up ordering that the first time because I was like, oh yeah, 4-inch dome. Both the cameras look identical. And I got it. And then I realized that the button layout was different on my 4K as opposed to the light and the other ones, which was a total bummer because I wanted a smaller dome because this thing is a little bit big. Anyway, guys, the links are going to be in the description to this thing and hopefully to the case if I can find a link to it on Harbor Freight. If you like these videos and you want to see more, I would highly appreciate it if you subscribe, like, comment, share. That's basically the currency of YouTube, so it really encourages me to keep going with this stuff. Thank you.